Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlicker, shills, debt slayers, peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks. Let's go global today. Welcome. I'm a useful idiot. And well, let's talk about electric cars. And as my regulars know, my handful of regulars, as my regulars know, I like to discuss this whole idea of automation and robotics and the useless class and universal basic income and this whole concept that sometime in the future there's going to be a radical shift due to technology. And the Industrial Revolution created a lot of new jobs, and the information technology age created a lot of new jobs. But I think this move to artificial intelligence and more automation, robotics, is going to be a different game. And so anyway, this news story comes out, and it kind of feeds into that the narrative. And this is the whole idea that the dominance of the electric vehicle is going to be another game changer as far as employment for the lower and middle classes. In this case, it's a human resources executive at Volkswagen discussing the transition to electric vehicles. And he said that electric vehicles are much easier and cheaper to build than internal combustion engine vehicles. Of course, with internal combustion engine vehicles, we have the engine, we have engine control systems, emission control systems, cooling systems, air intake systems, starters, transmissions, clutches, torque converters, transaxles, fuel systems, exhaust systems, catalytic converters, and then the computer sensors and regulators that go along with that engine. And then with an electric car, we have basically an electric motor, a battery, some wiring, and some controllers. So much more simple, and certainly not the need for intensive construction the way that an internal combustion engine car is. And so what we have now is a kind of a critical point, because when electric vehicles and the batteries themselves become cost effective and perfected, it will be the tipping point. And in a recent interview, this executive points out or spells out that the huge impact on global employment. VW itself plans on slashing global employment because of the switch over to electric cars, which they're very serious about. VW alone is going to be anywhere between 10 and 100,000 workers, and they've already been slashing their workforce, a lot of it due to scandals, but the fact is they see replacing a whole lot of their workforce with automation or nobody because these electric vehicles. So that's kind of an interesting side line to the electric vehicle story, is the fact that all these workers are going to be displaced. And so that's a huge industry. And of course, it's a huge industry in the United States, but it's also a huge industry because we've outsourced it to places like China and Mexico, but they will also feel the effects. So the simplicity of the electric vehicle requires few workers, and this on top of automation. So if you combine the fact that we have a much more simple vehicle to construct, and then you put in automation as well, it will be a real game changer. But as this article points out, a lot of these developments we'll see, along with self-driving cars, for example, too, is incremental changes. So it's not going to be some dramatic changeover in our lifetime. It will be a gradual incremental transition, and we'll see in baby steps and then larger steps, much the way we've seen, of course, with cell phones and a number of other things. But and then a whole other topic for another video, of course, would be the effect of electric cars and its effect on the petroleum industry. And that's fairly self-evident, but I'll be talking about that as well as some alternative energies. And then a couple more stories came out along with this, which were really good timing, because this one story, of course, purports that there will be electric cars will displace a lot of workers and be a game changer in global employment. But these other two articles are kind of at odds with that a little bit. One of them is, I'll attach below. It's a real news discussion of transitioning to clean energy from internal combustion engine and all the kind of petroleum-based energy we use now. The transition to clean energy will create more jobs in the future than the fossil fuel industry. And when I listen to the discussion, you make up your own mind. I got the impression that it was fairly naive because it all depended on a massive government intervention to support the companies and to create these jobs and to retrain people and everything else. So it sounded more like a pipe dream to me. I think unfortunately, in this case, the dire scenario is probably a little more accurate, but we shall see. And then the other article came out on Financial Times and talks about the fact that electric cars will create a bigger demand for metals than internal combustion engines. So that's an interesting complication too, and one of the reasons probably why we're upping the ante as far as the scramble for resources around the globe, particularly minerals, and why a place like Afghanistan that has a massive amounts of undeveloped mineral wealth. If there's going to be a lot more demand for these metals because of the switch over to electric cars, then it's going to be a big deal, and eventually there will be, I would imagine, a complete switch over to electric cars, and then, like I say, the demand for all these metals is going to skyrocket, and these metals are already in demand because they're used for a lot of technology that we have now: copper, aluminum, lithium, nickel, manganese, and cobalt. But so that will be another factor going in when electric cars start becoming more dominant. So might be a good time to reinvest in commodities, even though the bottom's dropped out. A lot of commodities might be time to reinvest because in 10 or 20 years, with the dominance of electric cars, there's going to be a lot of demand for those minerals. But anyway, there's another look at another possible game changer that's going to eliminate more lower and middle class employment in the future on a global scale. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too?